Hey everybody out there, welcome to this second episode of Coast's Caregiver Coffee. I hope that you have your coffee ready and that you are ready to hear some education about caregiving. My name is Matt Estrad. I'm a gerontologist in the greater New Orleans area, and I have been partnering with the Council on Aging in St. Tammany for 5 years as a caregiver support group leader. So over those 5 years, since April 2015, we've had over 250 sessions with care partners, and that's either in Covington or Slidell. That's where we meet. And I'll tell you a little bit about the group later. A quick plug for the group, which is now virtual until the Senior Activity Centers reopen. But today we're going to talk about hopefully a couple of topics. Depends on how deep we get into it, but we'll talk about healthcare wishes. Now, well, this will be a very, very basic introduction to healthcare wishes. And let me see, I want to have my screen ready so I can catch any questions if we get any. Let's see, excuse me. All right, so I have the window open. So if y'all send me a comment or a question, I can certainly address that in these 10 minutes. So advanced care planning basically involves, at a very high level overview, involves making sure that your healthcare wishes, and really it's towards end of life and involves life-sustaining options, that these are written down on paper, which is ideal. But at minimum, you want to make sure that you've expressed these, that you selected a healthcare representative or proxy that's going to be able to speak on your behalf if you find yourself in a situation where you've been in an accident, or your condition has spiraled down so quickly, or to a point where you can't speak for yourself, and medical treatment might be available. And it is in any number of things could happen. So, and while you can never really predict exactly what's going to happen at that point, and that makes things scary, there's some things that we recommend that everyone does for that moment, because you don't want to be, even though we don't know exactly what could happen in our future, when and where, etc., and what kind of advice might be needed, it's very important to do a minimum of things. And the advice will depend on where you're getting the advice from, physician's office, or here, social workers, or elsewhere. But I'm going to stick to the basics and highly recommend that you have this conversation with your primary care physician or other physician that provides you care. And this is not just for you as a care partner. This is for your loved one who may not be well. And you know what? It can be for anybody, because it doesn't really matter your age. You could find yourself in a situation where you're in a coma, or you're in some kind of situation where you're not able to speak for yourself, and you want to have expressed your values in accordance to how you see things, how you would like to be treated towards the end of life. So advanced care planning, or advanced directives, they can be one or two things, and many people have both. And one is a healthcare proxy. Now, this is a fancy term for someone who you have officially named and said, okay, if I can't speak for myself, I want you to have the authority to speak on behalf of me. And also, it's not just name the person, but you have to prepare them. So you want to talk to them about what your values are, especially towards the end of life. So you have your proxy. That's your person. I would say that's very, very important. If we encourage the next step, which is documenting things, but you really need to have somebody and have that conversation with them. Now, the documentation helps where in case the person forgets the exact details, or this is just going to be something that's going to help them, because when somebody's sick, somebody's ill, it's very stressful. So you want to help them prepare for that time the best that you can. So the documentation is known as a living will, and there are other names for this as well. And remember, this is just the basics. This is important to talk to your physician about. This is important to talk to your family attorney about. in getting all of these things in place. And there are documents. I'll link to a really good article by Dr. Susan Nelson, who's at Auctioner, and that also has some links to other websites. I believe it has a link to the Louisiana State Living Will, which is most, if not all, states have their own official form that you can kind of fill in the blanks and have on file to assist your healthcare proxy or representative. So the living will is going to discuss life-sustaining treatment, and that's ventilators and feeding tubes, and they go about defining all of that in the document. Now, is the document perfect? And I would say not, because I don't think there's any document that is perfect. And that's why I think it's important that you have these conversations with a loved one, that it's not just a document that you're relying on. You're also relying on a loved one who you trust and is going to carry out your wishes. Now, so definitely do include your physician in these conversations. And remember, it's not a matter of how old you are, because all of us could end up falling ill to any kind of disease or getting into an accident where we're not able to really respond and talk about what kind of wishes that we would have wanted. So look for, once this is published and it's archived, I can't do it right now while it's live, but when it's archived, look for the blog article that is by an Oxford physician, Susan Nelson, who many people in the state know as being a champion for advanced care planning, and has been in Baton Rouge for a very long time, and now is in New Orleans with Auctioner. So another tip that I want to talk about is being proactive and keeping your family and friends around when there's some kind of diagnosis, whether it's dementia or it's cancer or Parkinson's. It could be any kind of like chronic disease. Because what happens many times, and at least I've seen most of my experiences around Alzheimer's and different types of dementia, is that when there is a diagnosis, and I'll put it how one of the caregiver support group members phrased it, and he said, friends dry up. And this happens especially when dementia is involved, but not exclusively. And this is when family and friends who used to come around or used to call, they don't do that they don't do that as often as they used to, and many of the reasons why we can only theorize why this is happening, but it's an awkward situation. Many people want to remember your loved one, you or your loved one, as somebody being vibrant and being active, and so when something happens, they drift away because they don't want to see you or anyone in that situation. So it's not a bad intent or evil intent or anything like that, but it's very unfortunate. It's something that we see. Besides that, another theory is that your friends and family who don't come around anymore or as much, they don't know what to say. They don't want to upset anybody. They don't know how to have a conversation. They don't want to interrupt the status quo. And so my recommendation, if you're someone who's on the outside, and you're a family member or friend, and someone you know develops a chronic condition or is diagnosed with dementia or anything that may be traumatic, is that you continue to communicate with them, that you continue to visit, that you continue to call. And when you have, if you feel like there's awkwardness and you're not sure what to say, it's important to express that to the caregivers and to the family, and just be honest about it and say, look, I feel really uncomfortable about this. What advice do you have? Because I still want to be around. I still want to support you. And the science has shown us that the number of visits, the more visits that a care partner, caregiver, and someone living with dementia, the more visits that they have, it's correlated with or associated with that person, that caregiver, feeling that there's a stronger emotional network to draw upon. So, and this is not that you have to provide any physical care. This is just that person knowing that they're coming around, that they can call you, that somebody's even thinking about them, praying about them, is such a huge thing that we've seen from the research. And And if you are a caregiver or someone living with dementia or somebody diagnosed with another type of chronic condition, my encouragement is that you reach out to people, that you continue to reach out. And I know that can be exhausting, and I know that can be upsetting. Like, why should I can imagine people saying, why should I reach out to them when, me and my family were the ones that are impacted? They should be going out of their way. And I understand that point completely. But hopefully it's been enlightening to hear about some of the theories about why people stop coming around when there's a chronic condition or some kind of diagnosis. So with that said, as much as you can handle, as much as you can muster to be humble, and to continue to reach out and try to communicate with them and say, hey, we really want you to keep coming around. It's really helpful. These are the things that I suggest in communicating with us. If you're not sure what to say, here are some ideas. Here are some articles that I found about visiting loved ones with dementia or other types of conditions. So really, hopefully you want it to come from both sides. I mean, hopefully someone who is not coming around because of a disease, they start coming around and get over how uncomfortable it is. And then also the caregivers are still reaching out to their loved ones and sort of empathizing with those people who might feel uncomfortable. So it's a push and a pull. It's trying to pull people, hoping everybody kind of comes together in that. So that's really the best case scenario. So I don't have any questions yet, but just remember that as we're doing these live weekly caregiver coffees, and I know it's going to take some time for people to get used to submitting questions and tuning in at just the right time. So, but I do encourage y'all to leave questions. We're going to wrap up in a minute as we're a little over 10 minutes now. But anyway, send me your thoughts. Even though you're watching this archive, send me your questions and your comments about the two topics that we talked about, and that was advanced care planning. And then we also talked about keeping loved ones around, those friends and family who maybe stop coming around or not as much when there's a diagnosis of not just dementia, but any kind of chronic condition. So I hope that this was helpful. I wanted to mention the caregiver support group very quickly and give it a quick plug. So we have been meeting for 5 years. I've been facilitating for that time since April, when the senior activity centers were closed for COVID-19. We went to the Zoom platform for people to call in via phone or using their cameras. So some people are not showing their faces on and don't have a camera, and some people do, and that's okay, whatever your capabilities are. And right now, today's June 15th, and we still we're operating these via Zoom. And in the future, we do anticipate getting back into the senior activity centers when they open up. But we think that we're also still going to have a presence online through Zoom because the caregivers are really enjoying it, where our numbers are really good, and participation has been very active. So we hope that you will consider that. And you can be a caregiver of somebody in any type of condition. Many of the caregivers are taking care of somebody with Alzheimer's or another type of dementia. And if you want to know the difference, check out the first episode of the Caregiver Coffee. So most of them are caregivers for someone with Alzheimer's or another type of dementia, but you do not have to. And we have caregivers of all types with us. So, and I will add that we have caregivers whose loved ones have passed away, and they're just part of our group, part of our family, and we ask them to continue coming and hanging out with us and discussing their experience as long as they want to be with us. And also we have many caregivers whose loved ones are not in the home. So you might think that you're not a caregiver if your loved one is now a resident at a care community, whether that's a nursing home or at assisted living or in memory care, but you're still a caregiver, and you're still having to stay on top of things and be an advocate, and you still, you're definitely, and you're still visiting, so you're still a caregiver, and I encourage you to consider joining our group. So my email address is at the bottom of the screen, matt@carepartnermentoring.com, so feel free to send me any kind of questions or comments, as well as comments and questions even long after this we've gone live. I will read the feedback. If I can, I'll answer them. I should get a notification, but if I miss it, please send me an email, because that means I just missed the comment in the section. So I hope that you have a great day, and I look forward to seeing you next Monday at 12 noon for Coast's Caregiver Coffee. Take care. Bye.